Hi guys. So we are on lesson 2 of this unit of genetics. First, we will quickly discuss the previous homework. I uploaded the memorandum on Google Classrooms and asked you to self-assess your work and come to this class with any questions. So I didn't receive many questions, but Susie asked me to explain question 2. So let's quickly look at question 2. Question 2 states, a flower has two alleles for color, pink and blue. Blue, capital B, is the dominant allele, while pink, small b, is recessive. What will the phenotype be in each of these cases? So A, capital B, capital B. So capital B is homozygous dominant. Remember, what does Mendel's law of dominance say? It states that if dominant allele, in this case capital B, is present, it will determine the trait. In other words, blue. So the answer is blue for A. Question B is small b, small b. So is the dominant capital B present or not? No, it's not. So it's homozygous recessive. In other words, the phenotype will be pink. C is maybe the trickier one because this is a heterozygous genotype, meaning capital B and a small b. But again, the law of dominance states that if the dominant allele is present, it will determine the trait. Is capital B present? Yes, it is. So the phenotype will be blue. Okay. I hope you guys are with me there and understand those answers. Thank you for marking and giving me some feedback on the homework. You also had to complete a table comparing your traits with the traits of your family members. So let me quickly share to you my table, which is here. Let's see. Sorry, let's just see where it is because I can't find it now. Here. Okay. I hope you can see this. It does say you are sharing screen, so I hope you can see the table. So the table here, I took traits, blue eyes, blonde hair, freckles, free earlobe, and can or cannot roll tongue. So I compared my own traits, teacher Mecca, with my mom, my dad, and my grandmother. So as you can see, I have 4 out of the 5 characteristics or traits that are the same as my mom's. So it's clear that I look most like my mom. But all of the other family members, we all share some of the traits. Because we share genetics. So that was the point of the exercise, and I hope you all saw. And if you don't share any traits with your family, maybe you should go ask mom or dad what's going on there. Anyway, let us go to the PowerPoint for this lesson. Okay, so today we are going to do monohybrid crosses and Punnet squares. So this is a lot of application. It's tricky. You have to focus. You have to keep up. Please, please ask if you have any questions at all so that I can attend to your questions. Okay. So the first thing is we have to do is predict inheritance. So a Punnet square is a tool to predict the characteristics a child can inherit from his or her parents, its parents. So you use the alleles that each parent has to determine the possible gene combinations that can be passed to offspring. Again, we use capital letters for dominant alleles, lowercase letters for recessive alleles. So a Punnet square is literally a square. Inside the square, we're going to add our alleles. So W in this case is the dominant, capital W, small lowercase w is the recessive. So let's use the example of hairline. So the mother has the following combination. That is heterozygous, capital, small w. The father has homozygous recessive, WW. They each pass one gene variation letter to their offspring. So the first thing you do is you draw your Punnett square, as I've done on the PowerPoint. Then you label the sides, the father and the mother. You put each allele that they have to give to their offspring. So the mother has a capital W and a small w to give. That's the gametes that's going to form. The father has two small w's as gametes that formed alleles that he can possibly give to his offspring. Then you add the parent variations, that's what we've just done, and then you fill in the square. Just as they stand there, you put them inside. So what you do is that W, the capital W of the mother, together with the small w of the father. And you carry on like this, WW, then again, capital W, small w, and another small w and small w from mom and dad. This gives you a Punnett square. This is a completed Punnett square. But what now? What does this tell us? So the dominant, this is now the phenotype of what's going to happen. The dominant has a widow's peak hairline, and the recessive is a straight hairline. So a widow's peak and a straight hairline, right? So the genotype is the genetic makeup. We've spoken about the terms genotype, phenotype. So this means in the Punnett square, there's 4 different variations that can possibly be the offspring. So 2 of them are heterozygous and 2 of them are homozygous recessive, which means 2 of the 4 children have big W, small w, and 2 have small w, small w. So what does this mean for their phenotype, their physical appearance? It means 50% or 2 out of 4 of the children have a chance of having a widow's peak hairline and 50% straight hairline. So the chance of the parents having a child with a widow's peak is 50%. The chance of the parents having a child with a straight hairline is 50%. So that is how you determine inheritance using a Punnett square. We will do lots more examples, so don't freak out. The next thing is a monohybrid cross. Monohybrid cross is a genetic cross between 2 individuals, basically like we've just done, each of which has a different allele for a single trait and 2 different possible alleles. Remember, 2 from mom, 2 from dad. Determine the offspring. Okay, so here is an example of a monohybrid cross. We are doing parents, tall plant. These are both homozygous recessive and homozygous dominant. Capital T, tall plant, dwarf plant, small t, small t. So the gametes, so there's a specific monohybrid crosses have a specific formation, a template basically that you have to use every time. You get 2 marks for just using the correct template without even doing anything other than that yet. So 2 free marks is a bonus, so definitely use it. Capital T, what are the possible gametes that can be formed from or after meiosis? Capital T. So 2 capital T's, right? They just write it here in an easy to see 1 capital T because that's just the possible gametes. So there's 2, but the only type that is possible is capital T. The same with the dwarf plant, it's small t after meiosis. Then those 2 confuse. What possible variation can there be? None other than capital T, small t. And this is also how Mendel did his experiments. He called it the first filial generation. So we just say F1 generation. is capital T, and the phenotype for this is tall plant because capital T is dominant. Then we can carry on with the monohybrid cross. Now we use, can I go back? Yes. Now we use the F1 generation as our new parents, okay? So we use capital T small t times capital T small t. After meiosis, what are the possible gametes? For each, there's capital T small t. Now what happens? You use a Punnet square. So these two things go together. You always use them together. Monohybrid crosses, Punnet squares, so important. And they can count up to 9 marks in an exam. So they are really important. Okay, so we've done how a Punnet square works. Let's look at it again. So you have for 2 gametes from mom, 2 gametes from dad. Tall plant, tall plant. So it's capital T, small t, capital T, small t. Now you put them all together. In the first block, the possible combination is capital T, capital T. Then it's capital T, small t, capital T, small t. And in the last block in the corner, it's small t together with small t. So let's look at the genotypic ratio first. 1, capital T, capital T. 2, capital T, small t, heterozygous, and 1, homozygous recessive. So the genotypic ratio is 1 to 2 to 1. But what is the phenotypic ratio? Remember, dominant, the law of dominance states that if the dominant allele is present, that trait is visible. So in other words, the phenotype, the physical appearance, remember phenotype, physical appearance, is going to be tall plant 3, dwarf plant 1. So 3 to 1. And that's basically how a monohybrid cross works. Always, it never changes. Here, they just state or tell you that you have to use the problem format or a template, as I told you before, to solve all monohybrid genetic crosses. It already counts, gives you 2 marks just for having these things correct, just for mentioning the phenotype and the F1 generation and meiosis and fertilization. So there we go. Easy 2 marks already. Here is just Mendel's monohybrid crosses. I told you he used them for his experiments. So this is what he did. He took the lilac pea flower color and the white pea flower color. So he obviously used thousands of these experiments. As I said before, we're just doing this one as an example. So P1, parent, the phenotype is lilac times white. What will be your genotype? Capital P, capital P for lilac, that is dominant, homozygous dominant. White is homozygous recessive, small p, small p. Possible gametes, 2 capital P's from the lilac, 2 small letter p's from the white. Meiosis occurs, then fertilization occurs. You have your Punnet square, or you can, like, you don't have to put it there. You can do it like we've done here. You can already know there's only one type of combination that can happen from a capital P and a small p, which is capital P, small p. All of the offspring will be the same. So 100% heterozygous capital P, small p. In other words, the phenotype will be all lilac flowers. So all of the offspring will be lilac flowers. Then Mendel took that heterozygous PP offspring, F1 generation, and he crossed them again. So again, it's exactly the same thing. We do it over and over the same way. P2 this time, phenotype, lilac times lilac, but here your genotype is the heterozygous. Capital P, small p, meiosis occurs, you get your possible gametes. Then you use a Punnet square, and you get the offspring, 4 different offsprings with 1 capital P, 2 capital P, small p's, and 1 small p, small p. The phenotypes, again, as I've explained before, the phenotypic ratio will be 3:1, 3 lilacs and 1 white flower. So it's important here to note that although both parents were lilac, it is possible for them to have white flower offsprings. Okay, so let's say they can ask you, like in the text at the side, it says of 929 F2 individuals, from the percentages that you have, you can work out how many lilac flowers and how many white flowers did he get. So we can say, let's take humans. So they have 4 offspring. I don't know, you get lilac hair and white hair. Just a quick example. So you will get 3 children, 75% of the offspring with lilac hair, and 1 child, 25% of your children with white hair. Okay. Another example of Mendel's crosses, he took here the round and the wrinkled. So this is exactly the same. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You are welcome to go through it. We're going to do lots more examples in the coming weeks and practice and practice and practice until we get this done. So you can go through this one. It works exactly the same as in the previous one. Okay. I'm going to skip this one. Here, now we have a question. Let's quickly work out this question. You can see this comes from a textbook, and look at the mark allocations. 7 marks for question A. That is a lot of marks for very little work if you really look at it that way. So please, please, please make sure that you know what's going on. So let's start with the question. Before we carry on with the questions, I just want to add, I uploaded some YouTube videos for resources again. Please go look at them at your own time. Use them, they are really helpful. The one I copied here for you as a link is explaining Punnet squares and monohybrid crosses, and some very important concepts recapped, which is quite great. Your homework activity is uploaded on Google Classroom again. We will discuss it next time. Please bring your questions again as we've done this week. We have a few more minutes to do these questions, so we can start with number 1A and see how far we get. So questions 1 says, choose one of the characteristics of pea plants that Mendel studied from the table below. Select letters to represent the genotype of the dominant and recessive and illustrate a cross between a homozygous dominant and a homozygous recessive plant using a genetic diagram and a Punnet square. Let's take, they took lilac and white, but let's take something other than the color because we've just done the example on that. So let's take yellow and green, the seed color. So yellow and green, let's make it Y, capital Y, small y, capital Y for yellow, and green will be small y for the recessive. Okay, so let me try the annotate on the screen right here and we'll see if we manage. So first we will start with P1, which is our parent. What is our, first we're going to start with the parent's phenotype. The phenotype is yellow and green. Yellow times green. Now what's going on? Okay, sorry guys, I switched over to whiteboard and just finished up to where I talked to you guys last. So we're going to carry on now. We chose phenotype yellow-green. So the genotype of yellow-green that we chose is capital Y times small y. Okay, then I'm going to draw the lines, what do these lines represent? They represent meiosis. What happens during meiosis is it forms gametes. What are the gametes formed here? In this case, here it can only be capital Y. Here it can only be small y. From this, there's still a times there because they together, they cross. Here we get fertilization. From fertilization, we get the F1 offspring. The offspring has a genotype of what? All of them are capital Y, small y. That's the only possible combination from these two gametes. The genotype. The phenotype is, in other words, there is a dominant one present and it represents yellow. And that is your monohybrid cross. Sorry for the confusion about how I'm going to do this, but I hope you are all with me. And yes, please come with questions next time, and I hope you all understand. Thanks for your time. Bye.